school a lot. And I learned a lot there, but that isn't really where you learn it, is it? I want to back up and give you a little of my life history. I was raised on a farm in western Michigan. My dad was a doctor, a general surgeon, and we started out with 40 acres with a house on it on the Thornapple River south of Grand Rapids, near the little village of Alaska. We moved there when I was 2 years old. And the first 10 years of my childhood were just Tom Sawyer. I'd run up and down the river and catch crayfish and go fishing and play softball with the neighbors and just pick up games and just, build tree houses, and I had a wonderful time. And then my dad decided it was time to build a barn and bring home the horse that he'd had as a kid. And since we had a barn, he bought some sheep. The sheep all had twin ewe lambs the next spring, and so suddenly we had a flock of sheep. And he bought what are called 3-in-1 combinations with cattle. They're cows with calf by side and they're bred back. And suddenly we had a herd of cattle. And he kept my mom pregnant with one on her breast, raising farm hands, and kept buying land. And by the time I graduated from high school, we had over 600 acres. And I was working my ass off. The summer before I went off to college, we put up 20,000 bales of hay. And I handled almost all of them, some of them twice. I was exhausted. And college sounded like such a vacation. I'd been a reasonably good student in high school, not great. You'd think maybe I was a great student by all the degrees I got. In fact, I was a shitty student. I was lazy, undisciplined, and largely unmotivated, I think. And I had no idea what I was up against. My dad was a wonderful, generous man, but he didn't give me any advice. I had no idea what I was going to experience when I went off to college. And I arrived there, and they Michigan State put me in Shaw Hall. Shaw Hall at that time was one sex, male. There were 1,200 of us, most of us majoring in science of one sort or another, and so there were, at that point in 1968, there were very few women in our classes. And I was nothing but a horny 17-year-old. And it was, so since I was pre-vet, they put me with a guy, I was rooming with a guy named Harold Fritz, who was already in veterinary school. And it didn't strike me, I didn't know anything about college. It didn't strike me as odd that a guy had been around the school long enough to be in veterinary school was still living in the dormitory with 1,200 guys. But he was. And he was constantly instigating pimp wars with our fellow floor mates. And it was crazy. But he gave me... My dad was never one to give me much advice. I wish he had been, but he just wasn't. I don't think he knew how he got where he was. So he didn't give me any advice, but Harold Fritz did. He gave me the single worst piece of advice I've ever got in my life. He said, "Oh, you're a doctor's kid, you were raised on a farm, you were in 4-H? Well, shit, you don't even have to study." And I was so exhausted when I got to college. I mean, I thought, yes, I'm just in. I mean, I wasn't arrogant. I just thought, well, I guess this is the way it is. Isn't that great? And I'd sleep in, and, you know, I had a million things I was interested in. It was all just a candy store. And, you know, occasionally I'd go to class, and I'd sit there in math class, and, oh yeah, we had this in high school. And then I'd go to the exam and go, oh shit, I don't know how to do this problem. So my first term at Michigan State got a 2.14. It was just unbelievable, and it took me years to dig out from that hole. And meantime, my dad just paid the tuition, and I think the second term I had a 2.24, and I slowly dug my way out, but I had to apply to vet school 3 times before I got in. I graduated from vet school with honors, but for the first 3 or 4 years that I was at Michigan State, I might as well have been on the moon. And so this is about second chances. I mean, this is about love, about loyalty, about understanding that when somebody tells you they're a self-made man, there's something they're leaving out. I know what the old man did for me. He didn't give me much advice, but he kept me out of Vietnam. He helped me stay in school until I got my shit together. Boys are slow. Their brains develop slowly, more slowly than girls. And I was 17 when I arrived there. I had a lot of growing up to do. And it was just terrific that I had that second chance. Thank you.